every faith of the world and every noble effort of man, reconciling spirituality and material advancement, faith and reason, science and mysticism, work and contemplation, service to man and absorption in God. Never before had it been conceived as the one universal religion by accepting the principles of which the follower of any or no creed could continue along his own path, at the same time be able to identify himself with every other creed and aspect of religion. So you can see how people accepted him. That is his universal idea of the religion. That means people with a different faith or no faith at all. And that has come to such a unity. That is, never before had it been broadened into a philosophy and religion which included every faith of the world and every noble effort of man, reconciling spirituality and material advancement, faith and reason, science and mysticism, work and contemplation, service to man and absorption in God. So these are the universal aspects which is coming in the religion. And man with the religion or without still continue in his own path. The Herculean task of teaching Vedanta in a foreign land had completely worn him out. He needed rest badly. Thence he proceeded to Thousand Island Park on St. Lawrence, where, at the earnest request of few students who were ready to put aside all their interests to study Vedanta, he agreed to hold classes for them. So continuous tour and preaching, teaching, lectures. So all the time practically very, very busy, and he was wearing out and he needed some rest. And here comes another request from a bunch of students who wanted to study Vedanta, and he agreed. There, under the ideal surroundings, he taught those intimate students. The subjects discussed in that heavenly atmosphere, surcharged with such his spirituality, were many. The Swami expounded to them such precious texts as Bhagavad Gita and the Narada Bhakti Sutras, with his mind always absorbed in Brahman. He himself said later that he was at his best at the Thousand Islands Park. One of the students records, of the wonderful weeks that followed, it is difficult to write. Only if one's mind were lifted up to that high state of consciousness in which we lived for the time, could one hope to recapture that experience. We were filled with joy. On the wings of inspiration, he carried us to the height which was his natural abode. His first overwhelming desire was to show us the path of mukti, to set us free. His second object was to train this group to carry on the work in America. There he reached one of his loftiest heights. The students saw ideas unfold and flower. He sought to waken the heroic energy of the souls placed in his hands. He said, "If I could only set you free with a touch," and how many were helped to freedom during his lifetime? Besides, the number of those who were being inspired to divinity by his immortal message is on the increase as time rolls on. So a man who wanted some rest from all the lectures and talks and meeting the people, big gatherings, now he is faced with a few students who really wanted to learn more about Vedanta. And he agreed to teach them, and a very ideal settings was there in the Thousand Islands in St. Lawrence. There, he himself later on said that he was at his best in the Thousand Islands Park. And he inspired them, and the students were also expressed their great admiration for him. A concrete result of his New York was the establishment of Vedanta Society there under the presidentship of Mr. Francis H. Leggett. So what happened, or how the work should further go on? So that was the establishment of the Vedanta Society in New York. The Swami had seen by now the best and the worst of both East and the West. He was now convinced that each had something to learn from the other. I believe that the Hindu faith has developed the spiritual at the expense of the material, he said, and I think that in the West, the contrary is true. By uniting the materialism of the West and the spiritualism of the East, I believe much can be accomplished. In Detroit, he said, may not one combine the energy of the lion and the gentleness of the lamb? Perhaps the future holds the conjunction of the East and the West, a combination which would be productive of marvelous results. The problem was now to harmonize everything without sacrificing anything. He had in his mind the plan of bringing his brother disciples to teach and preach Vedanta in America, and taking some of the American and the English disciples to teach science, industry, economics, applied sociology, organization, and cooperation in India. Now we look into the return of the hero. So Vivekananda went to America with a view to raise some funds and spend perhaps a short time. Now it ended up that he spent much more than the time he wanted to spend there, and that was a mission, that he felt that the whole world is calling, and that was a good opening for him to spread his ideas about the world religion, and a very good picture of India, what India stood for. Now we look into the return of the hero, what happens after the long tour in America. Though the Swami was completely absorbed in his work in the West, he never forgot about his original mission. We remember Ramakrishna Paramahamsa entrusting him the duty of the leader, or he was to be the guru, guiding the fellow monks. He was constantly in correspondence with his disciples in Madras and elsewhere, guiding, instructing, and encouraging them to push on with the work in India. In his immortal letters, detailed instructions were given about organizing the work. To quote only a few of his inspiring words, work hard, be steady, and have faith in the Lord. Keep the motto before you, elevation of the masses without injuring their religion. The fate of a nation does not depend upon the number of husbands their widows get, but upon the condition of the masses. Can you raise them? Can you give them back their lost individuality? This is to be done, and we will do it. You are all born to do it. Have faith in yourselves. Great convictions are the mothers of great deeds. So this was some of the encouraging words he was writing to his fellow monks, helping them to have the real guidance and giving them the right advice, or encouraging them what is the vision the mission they have in their hand. In the middle of November 1896, he suddenly decided that he must go back to India. So he asked Mrs. Servier, after the class talk, to book their berths for India from Naples by the earliest steamer available. On 16th December, Swami left London with Serviers. At Naples, Mr. Goodwin joined. At Naples, Mr. Goodwin joined the party and they arrived in Colombo on 15th January 1897. Now, the news about return of Vivekananda was spread all over, and therefore the news of Swami's return had already reached India. He was no longer the unknown wandering sannyasin. The great work he had done for India in the West had become known throughout India, from Colombo to Madras. In all the important cities, committees consisting of all sections of the society had been formed to accord him a fitting reception. All along the route of his tour, especially in Jaffna and Kumbakonam, he gave inspiring lectures, reminding the people of the glory of India's past and exhorting them to apply themselves to the task of raising her to the ancient splendor. But it was in Madras that he gave full expression to his ideas. On the third day after his arrival, a public address of welcome was presented to him at the Victoria Hall, but it was too small to contain the large gathering. The Swami, at the insistent demand of the enthusiastic public waiting outside, spoke to them in the open from the top of a coach in the Gita fashion, urging them to maintain their enthusiasm and utilize it for the service of India. During his stay in Madras, the Swami gave 5 public lectures, the subjects selected being My Plan of Campaign, The Sages of India, Vedanta in its relation to practical life, the work before us, and the future of India. In these, the Swami addressed the whole of India, and here one finds his message to India expressed in the most inspiring languages. Let us see, or let us listen to few of his soul-stirring words. I see that each nation, like each individual, has one theme in this life, which is the center, the principal note around which the other note comes to form the harmony. In one nation, political power is its vitality, as in England, artistic life in another, and so on. In India, religious life forms the center, the keynote of the whole music of national life. Therefore, if you succeed in the attempt to throw off your religion and take up either politics or society or any other things as your center, as the vitality of your national life, the results will be that you will become extinct. In very clear terms, Vivekananda has said that time. So what is that is the center of Indian ethos or the life? And if you are to deny that and jump on to something else, definitely there is going to be a ruin. Every man has to make his choice. So has every nation. We made our choice ages ago and we must abide by it. And after all, it is not such a bad choice. Is it such a bad choice in this world to think not of matter but of spirit, not of man but of God? Swami Vivekananda visited the West a second time in 1899, this time with the Swami Turiyananda and Sister Nivedita. He not only consolidated his work by starting the Vedanta Society of San Francisco and a Shanti Ashram at North California, but also saw with piercing clarity that social life in the West is like a peal of laughter, but underneath it is a veil. It ends in sob. The fun and frivolity are all on the surface. Really, it is full of tragic intensity. His primary message was, yes, the older I grow, the more everything seems to me a lie in manliness. So that was the main aspect of his talks during his return to India. Now we will see the last part of his life in India, last year in India. Immediately after arrival in Bombay, or at present it's called Mumbai, he left for Calcutta and reached Belur Mutt late in the evening on 9th December 1900, without any previous intimation. The gates of the monastery were locked for the night. Hearing the dinner bell, in the eagerness to join the monks at their meal, he scaled the gate. There was great rejoicing over the hero's homecoming. So without any prior information, Vivekananda goes to Belur Mutt to meet or to be with the monks. And there, because there is no information was given, the gate was closed. And when he hears the bell for the meals and the dining bell, and then in his eagerness to join the monks, he scales or jumps over the gate to join them. And they were very happy to have him back. Now the Swami tried to lead a carefree life in the monastery, surrounded by his pets, the dog Baga, the she-goat Hansi, an antelope, a stork, several cows and sheep, and ducks and geese, and a kid which he named Matru. He used to run and play with Matru on the ground, sometimes clad in his loincloth. Or he would supervise the cooking arrangement, or to be with the monks singing devotional songs. So very free or carefree life in the mutt. So you can imagine a long tour he had made, and very serious, or he has become quite aged, and then it's already 39. You cannot say that it's very old, but the long journeys and continuous lectures had worn him out. Sometimes he would be seen imparting spiritual instruction to his visitors, at other times engaged in serious lectures or study in his room, or explaining the members of the mutt the intricate passages of the scriptures and unfolding them in his scheme of future work. He freed himself entirely from all formal duties by executing the deed of trust in favor of his brother disciples, investing in them all the properties, including the Belur Mutt. So far he held in his name. Brahmananda was elected president. Still he kept careful watch on the life in the monastery, in spite of his physical suffering, and he was obeyed unquestioningly by all, including the president. He took to every detail: cleanliness, meals, study, meditation, work. He drew up a weekly timetable and saw to it that it was scrupulously followed. The classes on the Vedas and Puranas were held daily, he himself conducting them when his health permitted. The bell sounded for fixed hours for meals, study, discussion, and meditation. About 3 months before his death, he made it a rule that at 4 o'clock in the morning, a handbell should be rung from room to room to waken the monks. Within half an hour, all were to gather in the chapel for meditation. He was always there before them. He got up at 3 and went to the chapel, where he meditated for more than 2 hours. As he got up, he used to chant softly, Shiva, Shiva. His presence in the chapel created an intense spiritual atmosphere. Swami Brahmananda used to say, one at once becomes absorbed if one sits for meditation in the company of Vivekananda. I do not feel this when I sit alone. So now we come to the extraordinary life on earth of Swamiji's life, extraordinary life on earth come to an end on July 4th, 1902. A little glimpse into what has happened to the end. The Swami knew his end was nearing. His body was wearing away day by day, and he was preparing for his final departure. How often does a man ruin his disciples, he said, by remaining always with them? Leader leaves them, for without his absence they cannot develop themselves. He refused to express any opinion on the questions of the day. I can no more enter into outside affairs. I am already on the way, was his reply to those who came to him with the problems regarding work. You may be right, but I cannot enter any more into these matters. I am going down into death. He told Sister Nivedita when she questioned him on some important matter concerning her educational program. Everything about Swami in the last days was deliberate and significant. A week before the end, he was seen consulting the Bengali Alamak. 3 days before, on an Ekadashi day, he fed Sister Nivedita with his own hands, though he himself was fasting. At the end of her meal, he helped her wash her hands by pouring water for her, and then he dried them with a towel. It is I who should do these things for you, Swamiji, not you for me, she protested. His reply startled her. Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, he said. The reply, but that was the last time, came to her lips but remained unuttered. Something checked her. Here also it was the last time. On the last day, Friday 4th July 1902, he rose early, very early, going to the chapel alone. He shut the doors and bolted them contrary to his habit and meditated for 3 hours. He came down the steps of the shrine singing a beautiful song to the Divine Mother. Then he said in a whisper, if there were another Vivekananda, then he would have understood what this Vivekananda has done. And yet, how many Vivekanandas shall be born in time? Next, he asked his disciple, Swami Shubhananda, to read a passage from Shukla Yajurveda with the commentary of Mahidara on it. He did not agree with Mahidara and exhorted the disciples to make independent research into Vedas. He partook of the noon meal with great relish in company with the members of the mutt. Unlike the other days when he took the meal alone in his room. Immediately after, he gave lessons to the brahmacharyans on Sanskrit grammar for 3 hours. In the afternoon, he went out with the Swami Premananda and walked nearly 2 miles, discussing his plan to start a Vedic college in the monastery. When questioned as to its utility, he said, "The study of Vedas will kill superstition." On his return, he inquired about the welfare of every member of the monastery. Then he conversed for a long time with the members on the rise and fall of the nations. "India is immortal," he said, "if she persists in her search for God. But if she goes in for politics and social conflict, she will die." At 7 o'clock in the evening, the bell announced the worship in the chapel. The Swami went to his room and told the disciples attending him that no one should come to him until called for. He spent an hour in meditation and telling beads, and called the disciples to open all the windows and fan his head. He lay down quietly on his bed. The attendant thought that he was either sleeping or meditating. At the end of an hour, his hands trembled a little and he breathed once very heavily. There was silence for a minute or two, and again he breathed in the same manner. He breathed his last. He had just accomplished 39 years, 5 months, and 24 days, thus fulfilling a prophecy which was frequently on his lips: "I shall never live to see 40."